What's up, everyone? I'm Josh Harris, Seeger Swole. And I'm just getting a little stretch in before we start this video. I'm just trying to stretch my lats out. You know, it's how gains are made. Anyway, this week we're gonna be talking about fat. And let's get to it. Alright, so now when I'm talking about fat, 95% of the time I'm gonna be talking about triglycerides. Now there's two other categories. There's phospholipids and sterols. They're important. They do play they do have a function, but 95% of the time, when you hear the word fat, we're referring to triglycerides. So, what does fat do for you? Well, the fat is your main source, your main form of energy storage. Also, it is going to help with muscle work. Fat is going to protect your vital organs. And fat is outside the body, like in food. Fat is going to improve the taste of food. Fat is going to give you that feeling of satiety, being full. So fat is good for you. Healthy fats should be in your diet. Now, triglycerides, aka lipids. Triglycerides are broken down into four categories. So you have your saturated fat, your unsaturated fat, your monosaturated, and then your polysaturated. What you want to focus on, what's recommended by the National Heart Association, is focus on getting the UN fat in your diet. So that unsaturated, that mono unsaturated, that poly unsaturated. This workout right here, this is how you get real gains. You don't need a deadlift, you don't need a squat, right here. Oh, this is total gains. This is nothing but gains right here. As I said before, any intake of any macronutrient to an excess will cause weight gain and could potentially be bad for you. Same goes with fat. Now, a lot of the times when you hear about fat in the negative way, we're more so talking about trans and saturated fat. Tons of studies have shown that it's related to obesity, cancer, heart disease, artery disease. So you really want to eliminate that type of fat from your diet. So what is the recommended amount of fat that you should have? There's no specific gram amount of how much fat you should be eating. Based off your caloric needs, your fat intake should be about 20 to 35%. Now that should be healthy fat. You know, a lot of food items are food items that have a lot of saturated and trans fat. That would be items like cheese, milk, beef, ice cream, cookies, donuts, butter, margarine, those type of items. So that's saturated and trans fat. So what do we mean by boosting the good fat? Well, that's going to be your polyunsaturated, mainly your omega-6 and your omega-3. That's what you always hear in the advertisements, health commercials, medical professionals, throw those words around all the time. And omega-6, most people, they don't need help getting omega-6 in their diet because that's going to be nutrients that comes from seeds, nuts, vegetable oil, things of that nature. Now, omega-3, that is typically found to be lacking. Now, the American Heart Association recommends that just to simply meet that omega-3 requirement, all it takes is about 8 ounces of fish, that's about 2 fish fillets, to get that fatty acid, that omega-3. And so 8 ounces added to your diet in a week, not that big a deal, right? Now you might hear and you might see in the stores supplements that offer omega-3, but that's not, if you're gonna talk about which way is better, it's recommended that you get that nutrient through food rather than a supplement. Back to what we do want to stay away from in regards to fat. I haven't mentioned it yet, but there's one big word. The word is hydrogenated. What that process does is it makes fat fresher for a longer period of time. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's healthy for you. See, what happens when it goes through that process, it takes a once healthy fat for you, unsaturated fat, and it actually produces trans fat. Now, trans fat is found in a very, very small amount of natural foods, but when it goes through the process of hydrogenation, it increases that trans fat and it becomes a potential health risk. As I said before, that saturated fat, potential health risk. Well, same goes for trans fat. Trans fat and saturated fat, you want to cut out of your diet. So really we'll just cut through the whole conversation. All anybody ever cares about is how do you get rid of fat. So here's what I want you to remember. Commit this to memory. Commit this to memory. Commit this to memory. Fat burns in a carbohydrate flame. Now what does that mean? So when your body's depleted of glucose and glycogen from our talks before about carbohydrates, it's gonna start to go for fat. It's gonna break apart that fat and it's gonna want to use the fat for energy. Now when it does that and it starts to break down that fatty acid from your fat storage, what happens, you're gonna need, the process goes a lot smoother if you have a glucose molecule attached to it. Your body can process it and begin to break that apart for energy. So that's why the saying goes, fat burns in a carbohydrate flame. So if you have that glucose molecule that can be combined with that fatty acid, that process of breaking it down and using it for energy goes a lot quicker. Therefore, you burn more fat. Very simple, right? So let me leave you with some tips, some fat tips. So what you want to shoot for, you want to shoot for the UN in fat. Ha! The unsaturated, the polyunsaturated, the monounsaturated. Those are the healthy fats. Get those fats in your diet, you'll be fine. Another tip, stay away from the word hydrogenated. It's a bad word. It's like, basically, it's a curse word. You don't want to say it. You don't want to read it, just stay away from it. And last tip, stay away from fast food chains. Now, I mean, if you absolutely positively can't avoid it for some odd reason, at least go for the healthy option on their menu. If it's gonna be get baked rather than deep fried, get a salad. Just beware of the toppings, because the toppings, salad dressing, as I mentioned before, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but salad dressing, depending on what kind you're getting, if it's from a fast food chain, more than likely it is just packed with fat. It's gross. So be careful of the salad toppings, but just elect a healthier option if you happen to be going to a fast food chain. And I'm picking on fast food, but also with that, if you happen to go out to a nice restaurant and you're paying like $60 a plate, $40 a plate, it doesn't necessarily mean that whatever you're ordering is now just healthier for you. Like, oh, it's been triple distilled, passive aggressive, non-maintenance friendly, whole cow. What? So that wraps up all my tips, which wraps up the video. So I hope you learned a little something. Give it a like, give it a share if you did. Anyway, I've been in the gym way too long. I actually think I found a new exercise right here, or a stretch. I don't know, but this is great for gains. Anyway, I'm out.
Are you okay?